before I start the class, I repeat that I will give 5 minutes for the students to come to my class or enter into my class. If you don't join it within this time, I will not allow them to enter. So you convey this message once again to all the students. So now let me start today's class. Uh, you all know that in my last class I was discussing about the two different types of transformers. That is, one is the normal power transformer, other is testing transformer, which is used for testing the high voltage equipments and accessories. Now today I will start with a slightly different thing. That is transformer equivalent circuit. Now all of you know about the transformer equivalent circuit. I'm not talking about refer to primary or refer to secondary, doesn't matter, equivalent circuit remains the same. Now, what you typically have, a transformer equivalent circuit, that is, uh, typically, there is a series resistance and reactance, and then parallel, we call it the magnetizing branch. This is the typical equivalent circuit. The series resistance and reactance is the leakage reactance and the series resistance. Now, that is fine, but we have to always understand that there is always capacitance involved in the winding. These capacitances, and you all know that capacitance between two electrodes depend on the area of the electrode, the distance between the electrode and the dielectric material in between. It doesn't depend on the voltage. Please don't make this mistake. Sometimes I have heard the students that there's no voltage is applied, so there is no capacitance. Capacitance is a physical property, so it doesn't depend on the potential applied. So in the transformer, we have a winding and we have large number of turns. We have the tank. So we have first of all winding and the tank, which are two electrodes. And in between you have the dielectric, it could be paper, it could be oil. So there will be a capacitance. We call it the shunt capacitor because this is not in series with the winding. This is in parallel with the winding. Secondly, in between the two turns, also because they are at different potential, they will act as two different electrodes. And in between these two turns, there will be again some dielectric material, and therefore there will be also a capacitor. Now these capacitances are in series because they are between the turns. So we have two types of capacitances in a transformer winding. So let me show you that diagram so it will be clear to you. I hope you will be able to see. Okay, now I hope it is coming on your screen. Now you can see on your screen this figure. Now this figure normally is drawn in a vertical way. I have drawn it in an horizontal way just for ease of drawing. The right side is the high voltage terminal and the left side is the R. And you can see the series inductance is shown. I have not shown the series resistance because compared to the series inductance, the series resistance is much lower. Then you can see that in parallel with the inductance, we have a CS, which stands for the series capacitance. So these inductances are distributed over the entire winding because transformer winding is particularly large transformer winding is not a small winding. So we cannot have a lumped parameter representation. We should have a distributed parameter representation as shown. These are all distributed inductances over the entire winding. So the series capacitances comes in parallel with this leakage reactances. Then you can see that there are the shunt capacitances which are between the winding and the tank. These are the shunt, which is called here as CG, that means the ground capacitances. Now, normally, when you had studied the power transformer in your course, these capacitances were not shown. Why? Yes, there is a reason. That when I have the frequency that is 50 hertz or frequency, then the reactance of this inductance is omega L, where F is 50 hertz. And the reactance of this capacitance, please remember, these capacitances are not very high capacitances. These are very, very low capacitances. These will not be even of the order of microfarad. These will be of the order of some 50 nanofarad, something like that. So they are very low capacitances. So 1 by omega c, when omega is 50, so 2 pi f is roughly 314. I'm doing a rough calculation. 314, if I take 300, then it is 3 into 10 to the power 2. And if this capacitance is, let's say, 100 nanofarad, so it will be 10 to the power minus 7. So 10 to the power minus 7 multiplied by 10 to the power plus 2. So in the denominator, you have 10 to the power minus 5. So Xc will become 1 by 10 to the power minus 5 or 10 to the power 5 ohm. So 0.1 giga ohm, this CS1, the reactance. Whereas these in series inductances, they are of the order of millihenry. That means 10 to the power minus 3 multiplied by omega L, omega, which is 314, again 300. So 10 to the power 2 into 10 to the power minus 3. So it becomes 0.1. So it is of the order of 10 to the power minus 1 ohm. So you have two components in parallel. One is 10 to the power minus 1 ohm, that is the reactance of the inductor. Reactance of the CS becomes 10 to the power plus 5 ohm. So all the current will flow through the inductor. No current will flow through the capacitor. So you can clearly understand that. And the same logic is valid for CG, that its reactance will be of the order of 10 to the power 5. If the frequency changes and if the frequency becomes megahertz, why I am talking about megahertz? Because the surges that appear in the system, the impulse voltages that appear in the system, they are of that, that their time duration is of the order of microseconds. So microseconds corresponds to megahertz. Now you can clearly calculate if it is megahertz, which is 10 to the power 6, then L is 10 to the power minus 3. So the reactance becomes 10 to the power plus 3 ohm. That is the inductive reactance. Whereas the capacitance is 100 nanofarad, so 10 to the power minus 7, multiplied by frequency 10 to the power plus 6, so it becomes 0.1. And so it becomes only about 10 ohm. So at higher frequency, the reactance of these capacitances becomes much lower compared to the reactance of the inductances. And therefore, the current flows not through the inductance, but current flows through the capacitances. Now, since in your earlier classes, we were not considering the impulse voltages, So we considered only the power frequency equivalent circuit of the transformer. So therefore, here is a catch that if in your grand viva, if I ask you that draw the equivalent, of course your grand viva will be much later, but still, if I ask you draw the equivalent circuit of a transformer, you should ask me a counter question that whether I should draw the power frequency equivalent circuit or I should draw the high frequency equivalent circuit. So therefore, this figure that I am showing you is known as the high frequency equivalent circuit of a transformer. Because as I said, for high frequency, the current flows through the capacitor and not through the inductor, and therefore we have a ladder structure comprising of series capacitances and the shunt capacitance. Now, what is the effect? First of all, the transformer windings are all symmetric. So the series capacitances are typically all same because the winding diameter, the material, everything more or less remains same from top to bottom. Similarly, the ground capacitances also remain same because the distance, etc., remains same. Now, what happens? Say, let us say, what will be the potential distribution along the winding if somebody asks me. Then the terminal on the right is 100% voltage, that means the full voltage. Terminal on the left is the R, zero voltage. So in between, I will have a potential distribution, no doubt about that. Is it linear? That's the big question. Let us examine this case. So it is something like this. Let's say I1 is flowing through the high voltage terminal. That means the rightmost terminal. This I1 is flowing through CS1. Therefore, the voltage drop across CS1 is VS1. And this VS1 is I1 into 1 by omega CS1. Then out of this I1, a small amount of current goes to R through CG. So the current through CS2 is not equal to I1. That is slightly less. And therefore, the voltage drop across the second capacitor is I2 into 1 by omega CS2. If CS1 and CS2 is equal, because I1 is higher than I2, so the voltage across the first group of turns will be higher. Voltage across the second group of turn will be relatively lower. Then some more current goes to R through CG. Then I3 flows through CS3. And this I3 is further lower than I2. So the voltage across CS3 will be further lower. So in this way, the voltage distribution is such that the voltage across CS1 is highest, then gradually it goes down. And therefore, we can draw a plot like this, where this dotted line is the ideal case. That means when all the potentials across CS1, etc., are same. That's called the linear or uniform potential distribution. But practically, it is not so. Practically, the live terminal, the coils near the live terminal have much higher voltage. So that means if it is 100, look at my mouse, then the first 20% of the winding will probably have 40% of the total voltage. And the rest 80% will have 60% of the total voltage. And it has been found, as you can see in this paragraph, that first 2.5% of the winding is sometimes 80% of the voltage appears. This is fantastic. I mean, if such thing happens, then what will happen? That means this nonlinearity is such that the curve drops sharply and then flattens. But in that case, these initial coils must be properly insulated, otherwise there will be complete breakdown of insulation. So this is the potential distribution we have to clearly understand. Now, if I look at this diagram and if I ask somebody, this figure 5 I'm talking about, if I ask somebody that who is responsible for this nonlinear potential distribution, the answer is very clear. It is this CG, the shunt capacitance. So therefore, we can have a ratio of CG by CS. If CG is absent, that means if CG is zero, then this reactance will be infinite and therefore no current will flow through the shunt capacitance, and naturally the voltage distribution will be linear. So that means if CG by CS is zero, the voltage distribution will be linear. Now CG by CS is zero can be by two ways. One is CG is zero, the other is CS is infinity. But CS is not infinity, so CG is zero. But again, practically CG is never zero. Because if there is a winding, if there is a tank, CG will be there. So the potential distribution, if I plot that if alpha is equal to 0, where alpha is CG by CS, it is linear. Then as alpha goes on increasing, that means CG by CS, we continuously get this nonlinear distribution. And conversely, if somebody asks me that how can I then improve this nonlinear distribution, then you can straight away ask that I have to control alpha. But as I have shown in this diagram here, that this CG is always present between the winding and the tank. So the other option is, can I increase the value of CES? So by proper design, if I can increase the value of CS, then the ratio of CG by CS will go down and this potential distribution will become more linear. Now this is the typical winding of a very high voltage transformer, where you can see this is the core number 1, and then you have the winding. There is the 2 is the low voltage winding, 3 is the high voltage winding. Now high voltage winding shape, as it has been shown here, it is called trapezoidal shape. I will try to explain a little bit later. And this 6 is called the bushing. Through this bushing, the terminal comes out of the transformer. Now here I have to tell you slightly one important thing, that do you understand the difference between a bushing and an insulator? This is something as an electrical engineer should be clear to you. That means I can rephrase my question, that where I use bushing and where I use insulators. The answer is, when you need to just support the high voltage conductor with respect to the earth. That means a transmission line where you know that the conductor is supported by the insulator. You need the insulator. Now, whether it is hanging from the insulator or it is on top of the insulator doesn't matter. It is really supporting the conductor. Whereas here, you see, it is completely different. Here, there is no question of supporting the conductor. Here, the conductor is coming from the high voltage winding through the tank, which is a zero potential barrier, to outside. Or in other words, whenever a high voltage conductor has to pass through an earth barrier, you need a bushing. There you don't require insulator. So I repeat, whenever a high voltage conductor has to pass through an earth barrier, you need a bushing. There you don't require insulator. So these are the small things. Please remember as a good electrical engineer. Now I have already shown you that this 3 is a trapezoidal winding. Now, what is the use of the trapezoidal winding? We try to linearize the potential distribution. How? Now, trapezoidal windings are actually a special form of helical winding. We all know that the capacitance is given by epsilon r, epsilon 0, A by T. Now, relative permittivity of the winding insulation and the distance between two successive layers. What is the successive layer? Here. These horizontal layers. The winding is from inside to outside. So there are multiple layers here. So the thickness of the individual layers also remains same. That means D. So this area, therefore, what is the area? Please remember, this is the cross-sectional diagram. Actually, this winding is a cylinder. So if I take the axial length L, then the area of the winding is 2 pi r L. So therefore, I can write an equation for this C that if I take the different layers, the first one, if I say the radius is R1, the second one R2, and the length is L1, L2, like that, then the capacitances which are here written, as you can see, the epsilon 2 pi R1 L1, this is the area pi D1, but I have already said that the distance between the two layers remain same. So denominator D is same, but numerator changes. So therefore, what is happening, what we are getting is that if we can keep R1 L1, R2 L2, Rn Ln as constant, we are going to get same capacitances. So that is what is being tried. And as you can see in this diagram, that the first layer, this is the radius R1, this is the length L1. Second one, R2 is higher, so we reduce the length. Third one, or nth one, Rn is much higher, so we reduce the Ln. And as a result, what we are going to get is this type of trapezoidal winding. And in that case, we try, and this helps in linearizing the potential distribution. The second concept is use of static shield. Then what is it? It is something like this. Say now I have drawn it in a vertical way. The right side is the tank, which is shown to be earthed. Then this CS, they are the winding capacitances, different turns, or the sections you can say. What we are doing is from the high voltage terminal, a metallic connection is made around the initial part of the winding. That means it covers the initial part like a canopy. It doesn't touch it. It is like, a sort of canopy. So what happens is in this case that the ground capacitances in this case are all formed with respect to this canopy. This is the shield. Whereas the individual sections, they form some more capacitances with respect to the shield. And you can clearly see that these capacitances, CSA and CSB and CS, they are all in parallel. Or in other words, the capacitance increases. That means CS increases. So two things happens. One, this CG, whatever current was bypassed through this uh, terminal to the section terminals, now this current is actually coming from the high voltage terminal. It is not coming through this CS. That is, the current through this CS is becoming more linear. Secondly, this CS is increasing because these are in parallel. So naturally that CG by CS, which I was trying to tell you, that increases and which also helps in linearizing the potential distribution. And by the way, this sort of static shields is not only here, this is used in almost everywhere. if you look carefully, even the high voltage transmission lines, if you just look carefully, then you will see that there will be a toroidal short of shield will be used at the high voltage terminal. Or if you look at any high voltage equipment, if you look at the high voltage terminal, you will see that there will be some sort of a shield there. Now, shape of the shield varies from design to design, but invariably there will be a shield. For example, if I want to show you, just let me see, where is it?
Sir, sir,
Yes, yes, tell me.
sir, sir, how does this shield linearize the potential distribution?
That is what I am trying to tell you, that two things happen here. First of all, this current which was being bypassed, let's say from the junction of first and second CS, some current was flowing through CG to earth, but now here CG is formed not with respect to CS but with respect to the shield. So any current that will flow through CG, that will come directly from the high voltage terminal. It will not flow through CS and then to CG, because that is a higher reactance. This is number one. Thus, current which is being bypassed to the earth is being reduced. This is first one. Second one, that CS and CSA, you can see they are in parallel. And they are all with respect to the high voltage terminal, not with respect to earth. So they are actually the series capacitance. So when they are in parallel, their capacitances are added. No. So what happens? The CS increases. And as you know, I have earlier told that this ratio CG by CS, if it is lower, it always helps in linearization. Now, if CS increases, naturally, your ratio CG by CS decreases. So this shield, therefore, helps in improving the distribution by first reducing the current that is being bypassed to earth by supplying this current directly from the high voltage terminal, and secondly by increasing the series capacitance. Only one thing you can say, that this linearization never happens throughout the winding. It happens only across that part of the winding which is under the shield. That means typically maximum 15 to 20% of the winding. But the argument is that that is the part of the winding which is always getting the maximum voltage trace. So if we linearize in that zone, that is always beneficial. This is how we linearize at the high voltage terminal. Now I just want to show you this shield, a little bit of photograph. Let me see whether I have it or not. I guess I must be having. Oops. I am not finding it anyway. Let me see whether. Here, right, I got it. I will share it. I am sharing one file. Now you can see carefully. I hope it will come on your screen now. Now I think you can see a figure.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Now you look at it, very interesting figure. Now see this vertical component here, here you can see. Can you see this toroid?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
You can see the toroid, right? And you can see the toroid is connected to the high voltage terminal by metallic connection, you can see here. So what will be the potential of the toroid? Equal to the high voltage terminal. But you can see that it is not touching this part. Now, this is not transformer, but this is also something which has a distributed parameter inside it. Right? So what it is doing, you can see that it is covering the first maybe 20% or maybe something like that. So now what is happening? This part of this component is having some series capacitance formed with respect to this toroid. And therefore, this series capacitance is increasing. And that helps in linearization of the potential, not through the entire length, but only through that first part. See, here you have three sections you can see. So first section, it is linearizing. And the argument is that this first section is probably going to have the most nonlinear distribution. So if I linearize here, I get a lot of benefit. So this is what is the practical benefit of using the shields. And by the way, it is always remember that shields are mostly used. I don't know, let me see. I mean, this is something slightly different, but this is also to some extent that, but not really the shield. Here. Here you can see this photo you can see.
Yes,
Here
sir.
you can see the toroids.
Yes, sir.
Now these are exactly these shades, and these are extremely high voltage equipments. Right? This is so these toroids. See, they are not touching the equipment, but they are like it's like encircling that part, and they are connected to the high voltage terminal. And so what is happening? A lot of series capacitance is formed between the components and the shield, and effectively this is linearized. And you can see here that these shields are used everywhere. I mean, you can see in this diagram. Here you can see, look at the mouse, there are also these toroids, they are all placed. So that is what I am trying to mean, that this is how a shield actually linearizes the potential. In the case of a transformer, there is a very interesting design of winding. I think you have studied some in transformer winding type. Can you tell me two or three different types of winding? Different types of transformer winding.
Sandwich, interleaved.
Interleaved you can see here in front of your screen, but otherwise, what are the most common? Most common?
Helical winding.
Helical. Okay, one. Any other? Crossover. Good. Any third? Another one very common.
Spiral.
Spiral and helical is more or less the same.
Crossover.
Crossover already people have told. Let me show you. I am trying to find a winding photo. Let me see. Because unless I show you, it is not very interesting. I have a big winding photo with me. Just wait. I'm trying to find it. Where is it?
Disc winding.
Exactly. Now somebody has said disc winding. Wonderful. This is what I was looking from it. The most common type of high voltage winding is the disc type winding. But when you say disc type winding, you have to see it. Here. Let me show you. This is a very big transformer winding. Stop sharing. Now I share the photo with you. What happened? Here. I think you will be able to see now. Now I think you are seeing. Are you seeing a power transformer winding?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Yes, sir.
You can see here, it's a core type transformer, three phase, and it's a huge transformer, right? You can imagine the size of this transformer when it will go inside the tank, how big it will be. It's a huge one, right? And this is this winding that you can see why I was trying to say that when the winding is such a big one, so you can clearly see that there will be capacitances. Say, for example, look at my mouth. There will be the section here. So some series capacitances will be there between the turns of the winding. And then from this turn to the tank, wherever it is, you will have another winding, which will be the CG. Right. And then this will be distributed along this entire length, which is not a very small length. It's a comparatively much bigger. So that is what I am trying to highlight. Here I will show you one more. Can you see this?
Yes, sir.
Another photo. So now look at the right side. And here intentionally this man is standing next to the winding. Actually, these photos are taken like that. I mean, it is not for the man winding. This man is here to show you the relative dimension. So you can imagine how big it is, right? This is now being manufactured. So it is still under manufacturing. So you can clearly see that how these turns are being made. So these are the real big transformers we are talking about. These are not the short, small ones that you see. So that is why we are so much concerned. And I can tell you why we are so much concerned. Yeah, you can see this slide.
Yes,
Are
sir.
you seeing this slide? Okay. What is this photograph? This is a substation, any substation. So you can clearly see there are so many equipment in the substation. There is a thumb rule of power engineers. What is called a thumb rule? Thumb rule is a rule which cannot be mathematically proved. But from experience, people have made these rules. And over the years, it has been proved to be true. So now this thumb rule says that take all the equipment of this substation, whatever you are seeing, and sum up the cost. You get X. Take the cost of the transformer in this substation. It will be Y. Y, that means the cost of the transformer will be about 0.5x. Can you imagine that so many equipments in this substation, the cost of the transformer will be half the cost of the substation. It is so expensive. That is something as an engineer we have to keep always in mind. I show you this one. It's a real life transformer. 133 by 32 by 33 kV, 50 MVA. It's not a very big transformer. 50 MVA is not a very big transformer. I have collected cost from the manufacturer in 2020. You know what is the cost? Can you read it here now on your screen? How much
Yes.
it is?
3.6 crores.
Is it small value? Just one transformer. It is 3.6 crores. And you know the second point I have written, because I always am interested about the practicalities, what is the transportation weight of this transformer? Because I have to transport it. No? So just this single transformer weighs about 60 to 70 tons, depending on the design. Can you imagine? It's not kilo, 100 kilo or something. It is just one piece is 60 to 70 ton. Then how do you transport it? You require extremely, special and expensive transportation for that. This is another one, 220 by 33 kV transformer, 80 MVA. Still, it is not the biggest. We have 400 kV transformers. What is the approximate cost? 5.3 crores. Just one unit. And we please remember we have so many 220 kV transformers in our power system. So now you can understand what will be the cost of a 400 kV transformer. It will be almost touching 10 crores, 8 crores to 10 crores. Now just think of it. That one 400 kV transformer, and we have 400 kV line, right? A lot of 400 kV lines. So we need 400 kV transformers. And it costs 8 to 10 crores, one transformer. I think you didn't had that idea, right? That amount of cost involved. So we have to be extremely careful in designing, isn't it? Because unless I design properly, then this 8 core or 10 core, when you put it on the line, the surges will appear in the line. Surges you cannot control, lightning you cannot control. And if I cannot linearize the potential, this 8 crore will burn and only white smoke will come out. That is not, I mean, it's very, very bad engineering. So that's what I am trying to discuss. So what I am discussing, don't think it is just a theoretical discussion. It is a very, very practically relevant discussion. And those who do it, they know that how important it is. And I am, repeatedly telling you that since you will be engineer coming out of Jadavpur University in 2022, see, you should have always a practical bearing. Your thought process, right, has to be a little bit changed. Then you become a very, very good engineer. Doesn't mind where you are working. You could be software, you could be L&T, you could be power grid, doesn't matter. Your thought process should be a little bit practical oriented. Now I am coming to the interleaved winding, which is a very special type of winding. How we do it? First, let me explain what is the conventional winding. This is typically a series winding. That means all the turns are in series. Just for ease of understanding, I have drawn it like this. You can see in and out. In and out is nothing. In is the high voltage, out is the R. So the entire winding is divided into 10 sections and they are all in series. And then we have this C, right? These are between the sections. That means the series capacitance. So now take the section 1 and section 2. The section 1 potential is V, section 2 2V, like that 10 sections 10V. So what is the potential difference between across the C, first one? It is 2V minus V, that means V. What is the potential difference across the second C? It is 3V minus 2V, that means it is V. So we can show that all the capacitances, they have a potential difference of V. So now if you ask me, what is the total energy that is in this system? It is total energy is all individual and half CV square. How many are there? 9. So 9 into half CV square. And if I say the equivalent capacitance is C equivalent, and what is the potential difference? It is 10V minus V, so 9V. So if I say that what is the concept of equivalent capacitance? It is very simple, that the energy content should be same. So I sum up the total energy, that means half CV square into 9 is equal to half C equivalent into 9V square, because potential difference is 9V. If you equate that, you will get this equation. That the equivalent capacitance becomes C by 9. That means, and believe me, I mean, you can really understand that these are all series capacitance. That is CS. That equivalent CS is C by 9. What happens if it is interleaved? That is the interesting part. How it is connected? That connection is that here all the sections are in series. Whereas In this diagram, they are not so. The section 1 is in series with section 3. 3 is section 5, 5 to 7, 7 to 9. Then from 9 I come back to 2, then 4, then 6, then 8, then 10. This is called the interleaving of the binding. What is the net result? Because physically nothing is changed, so the capacitance remains C, because C depends on area and the distance. So we are not changing anything. But the potential difference is not same. Now here you see the first section has voltage V, whereas the second section doesn't have voltage V, it has 6V. You can calculate. Similarly, third section has a voltage difference, a potential of 2V. So what is the energy of the first capacitance? Half C 5V square. What is the energy of the second C? Potential difference is 6V minus 2V, that is 4V. So half C 4V square. Can you tell me how many capacitance has potential difference of 5V? How many capacitances have potential difference of 5V in this diagram? You can count on your screen.
The 3.
3.
Five.
Ah, 5. Exactly. Correct. 5. And how many has 4V?
4.
4. Correct. Exactly. So I have 9 capacitances. So 5 capacitances with 5V, 9 capacitances with 4V. So what is the total energy? So half C into 5V square, that is 5V into 5, and plus half C into 4V square into 4. That's here. That is the total energy. And then this is equal to half C equivalent into 9V square. And I find that the C equivalent becomes 7C by 3. Previously, this C equivalent was C by 9. And this is series capacitance. So you can see that how much it has increased. In the second case, C equivalent 2, first case, C equivalent 1. If I take a ratio, it is 21. That means series capacitance has increased by 21 times for the same dimension. That means same length, same diameter, everything, the series capacitance increased by 21 times. So Cg by Cs will also become what? 1 by 21, right? So that means it will be 5% of the other value. If I take 20, 1 by 20, it is only 5%. It's a fantastic change, right? That alpha value. So this interleaved winding makes the linearization much, much better. But there is a big but. It is not so easy. See, on a piece of paper, I am showing you, you are happy. But how do I connect? Because I said that these coils are physically located in the same direction, same places. But now, see, if I connect the end of section 1 with the beginning of 2, the connection is very simple. How do I connect the end of section 1 with end of section 3? I think you are not understanding my point. Again, I will show you. Let me see, where is it? That same winding, if I show you, here. Again, I go back to that transformer winding. I hope it is coming on your screen. Now here you see, look at that. See here, these coils, they are all in series. So if I just simply connect one turn to the next turn, absolutely no issue. But if I say that the first section, here look at my mouse, is not connected to the second section, but to the third section. How do you make the electrical connection? This is first question, that how do I make it? I mean, physically, how do I make it? How do I take the conductor? How do I connect? And the second point is the second section potential is not equal to the first section, not equal to the third section. There is a big difference. So the interleaved connection, this uh, making the connection is a big issue. And therefore, these interleaved windings are always very expensive. But interleaved winding is never used for smaller transformers. They are always used for very expensive transformers. That means if I am having one transformer of 10 crore, right, then naturally we have to take care of that. Why? Because there are certain practical issues. Let's say I have a transformer, 400 kV transformer, cost is 10 crores. Now I ask you a very simple question. If this transformer goes faulty, certain impulse comes, lightning comes, transformer with winding cannot withstand the voltage, there is a fault. Now you tell me, how do I get the second transformer? Can I go to the market and buy a 10 crore transformer? Is it possible? The answer is no. It's not a laptop, right? We go and buy it. You have to place an order, the company will make it for you for maybe 4 or 5 months, then you get it. Second thing, if it is a one unit cost 10 crore, do you think that your company will buy one 10 crore equipment and then keep it in the godown as a spare? Nobody does it. So these transformers are an equipment where we have to be very careful about the design so that it will be able to withstand the stresses. So that's what I am trying to highlight along with this calculations. Calculations are fine, which you can do, but I am trying to tell why we are so much bothered about this. Then comes a cascade connection of interesting transformers. What is cascade connection? Now again, let me show you a figure. Then you get a clear idea as what is a cascade connection. Let me show you because that makes things very clear. Here. So I will try to now share this one. Now you should be able to see it. It should come on your screen. You are seeing this photo?
Yes, sir.
What is it? What are you seeing?
Testing transformer.
Correct. And any idea about the size? You can see, right? We are standing below this. This is where? Any idea? India, abroad?
This is India.
India, sir.
This is India, right? You are confident.
You showed it last class.
Correct. I already told you. So now, this is actually CPRI, Central Power Research Institute. Now here you can see these are two transformers. So they are cascade connection. Cascade connection means they are connected in series. Then what happens? That if the output is V, I get 2V as the output. Right? So that if here in this case each one is 750 kV, so I get 1500 kV as the output. Right? Now there is a reason that why I do this. What is the reason? Because if I go for a single transformer which is of 1000 kV range, then it is impossible that I can make it. It is too big. And if it is too big, then there is a big question of transportation. I can tell you an experience. This happened in our Calcutta Electric Supply. When you pass through the bypass, uh, before you reach that Park Circus crossing, on the left side, have you seen there is a substation where transmission lines all enter? How many of you have seen?
Yes, sir. Just
So-
after Science City.
No, no, I mean, from which side you are traveling?
From Ultranga to
Yes,
south.
correct. From Ultadanga, if you are, I mean, from north, if you are coming to south, then it
Yes,
will be on your right.
Yes, sir.
And when you are going from south towards the Science City, it will be on your left.
Yes, sir.
That's a very big substation of, there are two substations, one from the WBSCB, one from the Calcutta Electric Supply. That is called Kosba substation, and half of the southern Calcutta gets power from that substation. Please remember, it is very important. And this substation gets power from all the major generating stations like Pandale and others. Transmission line comes to this substation. Now, it so happened that CESC, and you have seen the area, right? It's not a very open area.
Yes, sir.
So they ordered a transformer, and that transformer came by a huge truck. And they could not, I mean, it so happened that when they reached the site, they found that the gate of that particular place is so small that truck cannot go in. So they have to break down the entire boundary wall, and then the truck went in. It's a fact. So these are really big. I mean, when the voltage rating, etc., becomes high. So what we always prefer is that, say, if I have this diagram that I showed, that 1500 kV. Now we have two transformers which have 750 kV. Then each one is the size you have seen. But if you think one on 1500 kV, it's impossible. I cannot transport it. Just not possible. And another, let me just show you, just to give you some of the ideas. Just one moment. You are third year, okay. Now it is coming. So I will tell you a story, very interesting story. I don't know whether I have told you. Sharing, where is it? Now it is coming. Yes. Now this story is something like this, that in 2002, I was working in Germany in ABB Corporate Research. You all know, right? ABB is one of the largest companies which make power equipments. ABB, Siemens, these are the companies. I was working in Heidelberg. Now, one day I met their chief transformer designer. Have you done transformer design course in your engineering?
Sir, you told us this story last class.
The story.
On
So,
the
okay, already I have. That's why I told. But that's not the point. Then I forget about the story. But I showed this photo to you, right?
Yes, sir.
Now, just this is something again I repeat that if I make one big transformer, how difficult it is to transport. So therefore, we don't make such big transformers. What we prefer is, instead of one very big transformer, we'll make multiple transformers of lower rating, and then we'll connect them in series. so that I get the same output. But then another advantage is that, for example, I have shown you two transformers in cascade. Now, if by any chance one transformer becomes faulty, still I will be able to operate the one unit. That means my lab will be able to work with 50% capacity. Whereas if I have single unit of 1500 kV, if it goes faulty, then my lab is down. So this is called redundancy in the system, that my system redundancy also increases. But now the question is, how do I connect? Here I have taken three transformers. Here it's a schematic diagram. So first one on the left, second one on the middle, third one on the top, all same rating. That means primary voltage rating is V1, secondary voltage rating is V2, and there is a tertiary winding, which is also rated V1. And look at the connection, very interesting, that secondary of the first one, the left side, the high voltage terminal of that secondary is connected to the the lower terminal of the secondary of the second one. Then the high voltage or the upper terminal of the second one is connected to the lower terminal of the third one. So in this way, you can see the three secondaries are in series. That means if the voltages are V2, then I have the output, I get V2 plus V2 plus V2, 3V2 I get. This is called the cascade connection. But now a catch is coming. What is that? Normally you all know that the transformer tank is earthed. This is number one. Second point is, see, when I am connecting this upper terminal of the first transformer secondary to the lower terminal of the second transformer terminal, then this tank I cannot earth. You know why? Because normally the lower terminal of the secondary is at earth potential, like the first one. But in the second case, this lower terminal of the secondary is not at earth potential. It is at V2. Let's say this is 250 kV. So this lower terminal of the secondary will be at 250 kV. And the tank and the lower terminal should always be connected electrically. Why? Because if you don't do that, then there will be a capacitance that will arise between the lower terminal of the secondary and the tank. And this capacitance will have a floating voltage depending on just the system. You don't know what it is. Now that we cannot allow in testing because we have to know the voltage exactly. So this has to be electrically connected. This lower terminal and the tank, which means that the second one, the tank will be at a potential of 250 kV. Now the issue is, then you cannot put it on earth. That means you have to make a insulating structure and put the transformer on it. This block, what I have shown here, the rectangular block, is an insulating structure of, let's say, 250 kV. Then the lower terminal of the third transformer is at 500 kV. So I need an even bigger, the supporting structure on which I put it. So this way, then we have to put the transformers on insulating supports. I think this other one, the diagram, you can see this. Let me again show you. Here. Now you see this, it is coming on your screen. The same photo, again I am showing you. See this first one, left one. This is transformer number 1. This is, you can see the insulating structure on which it is placed. It is not placed on earth. But look at the right one. You see the height? double, right? Look at here. It is two columns. I'm sorry, two blocks. The height is two blocks. These are all insulators. And the right one, you can see four blocks. Why? Because the tank of this transformer is at double the voltage. That is what I am trying to mention when I am showing about this schematic diagram. That is this schematic diagram. So it is again, you can see here that these blocks, rectangular blocks, these are the insulating blocks. As I go higher up on the cascade connection, we have to put it on bigger and bigger insulating structure. This is number one. But this can be done, as I have shown you, this can be done. Then the question is fine, but then the primary of the second transformer, how does it get its power? Well, it gets from the tertiary of the first transformer. And it is the same voltage rating, that is V1. So this first transformer, the primary to secondary voltage ratio is V1 is to V2, whereas primary to tertiary is 1 is to 1. So V1 to V1. So when I apply a V1 voltage to the primary, I get V2 in the secondary. Automatically, I get V1 in the tertiary. And that is applied across the primary of the secondary. Then automatically, I get V2 in the secondary. Automatically, I get V1 in the primary, tertiary of the second transformer. Then I get V1 in the primary of the third transformer. And I get V2 in the secondary. And I get 3 V2 as the output. This is called the connection. That is the cascade connection. And here you can see I am applying voltage only at one transformer. All primary of all the other transformers, they get it through the tertiary winding. So that means I am not doing anything to them. It's all automatic. So it's a very smart way of connecting, and we get the required output. So this you can see, this is I was trying to tell you that this floating point capacitance that comes if you don't connect the lower terminal of the secondary with the tank, and there will be a somewhat voltage appearing depending on the overall system, which is absolutely undesirable. Now coming to I go to that earlier diagram to explain this point. Here. Achha, if somebody tells about, I said that all the transformers are identical. Honestly speaking, they are not really identical. Their voltage ratios are identical. What about the KVA rating? Now let us examine. Let us say that the output current on the final right side, let's say it is I. Whatever it is, I. Then what is the KVA rating of the secondary? It is V2 into I. Let's say V2 into I is equal to P. We all know that the KVA of the primary and the secondary will be balanced. So the primary of the third transformer will be P. And this primary gets its power from the tertiary of stage 2. So KVA rating of tertiary of stage 2 will have KVA rating of P. And what is the current through the secondary? It is I, because this is series. Voltage is V2, so KVA is V2 into I, which is P. Now both the tertiary and the secondary is getting its power from its primary. So the primary has a KVA rating of 2P. P plus P, secondary P, tertiary P. So the tertiary of the stage 1 will have a KVA rating of 2P. And the secondary of the first stage 1 transformer is again V2 into I, that is P. So the primary of the stage 1 transformer will have a KVA rating of 3P, that is secondary P, tertiary 2P. So that means the stage 3 transformer will have a KVA rating of P, stage 2 will have a KVA rating of 2P, stage 1 will have 3P. But again, I told you that if I order 3 different transformers, all the manufacturing will be different and cost will be higher. So we don't do that. What we do, we order same transformer. That means in this case, we'll order 3P as the KVA rating. So our voltage rating will be V1 is to V2 primary secondary, V1 is to V1 primary tertiary, KVA rating 3P straight away. That means as shown in the stage 1. So then total installed capacity will become, you can clearly see that it is 3P plus, if I install 3P, it will be 9P. Whereas output will become 3 into V2 into I. That means 3P. So I'm actually using 1/3 of the installed KVA capacity. I cannot use more than that. It is not possible. And if I order separate transformers, then also my installed capacity will be 3P plus 2P plus P, that is 6P. That means I can use maximum 50% of the installed capacity. Now this is something we cannot help because that is as per the connection configuration, which is beyond our control. So this is called the KVA grading, as you can see on your screen, KVA grading of the cascade testing transformer units, where this is exactly explained as I have told you, step by step it has explained. And it is installed capacity 55, utilization 50%, that means using 3 different transformers. If I use 3 identical transformers, this utilization will come to 33.3%. And then it is graphically represented here that on the left, stage number 1, 2, 3, then insulation level, then primary winding rating, tertiary winding rating, secondary winding rating. So if you go through it, I am sure that you will be able to understand the whole thing. So that makes this first part on the testing transformer is over. And I will give you this note. But if you have anything in your mind on this topic, you can ask me. You have any questions?
স্যার ওই গ্রেডিংটা আরেকবার স্যার বলবেন ওই লাস্টে যেটা ওই 33.3% হচ্ছে ওই জায়গাটা
Okay. All right. So let me again show you that one. I go back to diagram. It is easier always with respect here. Now look carefully. Stage 3. It is coming on your screen.
ইয়েস স্যার ইয়েস
Now stage 3. Secondary voltage is V2.
ইয়েস
Current is I.
ইয়েস
What is the KVA rating? V2 into I.
ইয়েস
Let's say this is P. I am saying just P.
ওকে
P is V2 into I. So primary of stage 3 will have KVA rating P because primary secondary KVA must be same.
ইয়েস
This is the basic transformer law. Now this primary is getting the power from the tertiary. Tertiary of stage 2. So tertiary of stage 2 will have a KVA rating of P.
ইয়েস
What about the secondary? It has a voltage of V2 and
Yes.
current is I because it is series connection.
ওকে
So KVA is V2 into I. That means P. But this both tertiary KVA as well as secondary KVA, it must come from the primary. So primary KVA must be 2P.
ওকে
So then tertiary of stage 1 must have KVA rating of 2P.
ওকে
And secondary is again voltage V2, current I. So it is V2 into I. That means P. So the primary of stage 1 must have 3P. That is P secondary, 2P tertiary. So what is the KVA rating of stage 1? This is 3P. What is the KVA rating of stage 2? 2P. What is the KVA rating of stage 3? P. So total KVA 6P. And what is
Yes,
output? And what is the output KVA?
3V to I.
I. So that means 3P.
Yes.
So it is 50%.
Okay, so I understand.
And if I use the identical transformer, that means not 3P to PP, I use 3P all the way, then it becomes 9P. So
Yes.
then this utilization becomes 33%.
Yes, yes.
That's what I was trying to say. Anything else?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, students. So then you can log out. I will send it by mail, this note. Okay, all the best.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.